What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and it is officially T-minus 24 hours until the NFL draft. It's 8:07 p.m. Eastern time, and I thought, why not throw my hat in the ring of all these pro mock drafts? You'll see on Twitter guys like Evan Silva, guys like Matthew Friedman, guys like Benjamin Albright. They all have these mock drafts. They get graded for having perfect mock drafts, so might as well try my hand at this mock draft thing. This is going to be my final mock draft. This is what I think is going to happen in the NFL draft, not what I would personally do. So keep in mind, these are just predictions, not really what I think should happen in the draft. And without further ado, man, if you fuck with this video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty bag.
So at the 101, we got the Jaguars on the clock. Easy, they're going to go Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that, I don't even really want to waste my breath talking about it. So we're going to go right to number 2. We got the New York Jets, and I want them to go Justin Fields. I personally think that Justin Fields is like a crazy good prospect, but it seems like the NFL doesn't agree with me. Right now, Zach Wilson's minus 500 in Vegas to go second overall. We'll lock that in. I don't think that that's anything too crazy. And then number 3 is going to be where the draft really starts to shake up. And the 49ers are either going to take Mac Jones or Trey Lance is what it seems like. I personally still think, like I said, I'm a Jets fan. I want them to pick Justin Fields. I think that Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in this class. It should be Justin Fields. But it looks like the 49ers don't think so. It looks like the NFL doesn't think so. And I'm still not convinced that Mac Jones goes here. I think that Kyle Shanahan, I just don't see why he would go Mac Jones when he already has Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo just seems like pretty much as good as Mac Jones. They're the same type of quarterback. But I think that what's really going on here, I think Kyle Shanahan, he's just infatuated with Lance's physical tools. I think he saw what Josh Allen did. Josh Allen came to Candlestick Stadium in San Francisco. He dropped 375 yards and 4 touchdowns on him. And I think that Josh Allen just taking over the league as this big physical quarterback. And then you have this guy, Trey Lance, come in who doesn't have those concerns of the bad completion percentage, the interceptions, anything like that. He comes in as a clean prospect, but he's still big and physical and mobile. I think that Trey Lance is the pick. And I think that that's going to be where this mock draft can either fall apart or really beat out the rest of them, I guess. Because Mac Jones, if he goes at number 3, then the whole thing gets thrown into an absolute orbit. Who knows where Trey Lance goes if it's not at number 3? It would probably be somewhere around like the 7 to 10 range. Then we have the 4th overall pick. And I think this is going to be Kyle Pitts. I think that the Falcons just want to get like an offensive unicorn. I was hearing that this is kind of like when the Colts took Quentin Nelson, the guard, like top 5, top 6, top 7. It was a weird pick at the time because you don't see guards go there, or that you don't see guards go that high. But he's a blue chip prospect. He ended up being a great pick. I think the same thing's going to happen with Kyle Pitts, and I think they still want to roll with Matt Ryan. At number 5, we have the Bengals, and this one gives me so many problems because the easy pick, the no-brainer pick would be a Penei Sewell. It just makes sense. They need an offensive tackle. Joe Burrow has a crazy scar on his knee right now. But I think that Joe Burrow probably pounds the table for the guy that he had a lot of success with in college, in Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is a blue chip wide receiver, a Julio Jones type level prospect. And I think that if you get Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, there's no way he can't fail. And they have such an early pick in the 2nd round. There's a lot of these guys like Dylan Raduns, Liam Eichenberg, Leatherwood out of Alabama. There's a lot of those tackles that are going to fall, so they can just beef up the O-line in day 2. So I think they do go Jamar Chase just because Joe Burrow, I'd imagine they run it past Joe Burrow. And if Joe Burrow says that, hey boss, like I know my knee's fucked up, but I'm cool with running the risk. We'll patch up the O-line later. Please go get me my favorite wide receiver from college. They get Jamar Chase, and that's when you have the Dolphins. I think that there's a clear tier break. I think the clear blue chippers of this class is Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, and Penei Sewell. And I don't think the Dolphins are thrilled to make this pick, but I don't think they reach on a Waddle. I think they go Penei Sewell. They lock up that offensive line. They didn't have anybody crazy starting. Their starting left tackle, or their starting tackles were 66th and 44th per PFF. Nobody crazy on the tackle spots. So you might as well protect Tua. Tua's a guy that had that really bad injury, like that hip injury in college. So they protect him. Penei Sewell is like a blue chip prospect. In a sophomore year, I was looking on PFF grades. His sophomore year, he has the highest graded season for a tackle as a sophomore at Oregon. He opted out of his junior year, I think. Then at number 7, we have Detroit. And one more time, I keep pounding the table for Justin Fields, but I don't think these teams are going to take him. I think Coach Campbell, I think he's an old-fashioned guy, the guy that said that he wants to knock people's kneecaps off and do that type of shit. He's one of those guys that are like, build around the trenches, do this and that. So I think they're going to roll with Goff. And I think that a wide receiver would make a lot of sense, but I don't think they're going to go Waddle or DeMonta Smith here. I think they go Rashawn Slater. I think that Campbell's going to want he's going to want a big hoss up front. I think O-line or just any lineman kind of fits his brand as a coach. And I think that he's really about making that culture and making it something where he's going to want to say, oh, we're going to win in the trenches first and make that kind of pick, protect the quarterback, whatever. Rashawn Slater seems like a blue chip tackle. He could even go ahead of Penei Sewell, but at this point, I don't see it happening. Finally, though, at number 8, that's when we finally get Justin Fields off the board. And I know you guys are probably scratching your head at that pick. You're like, they just traded a lot for Sam Darnold. Why would they do that? They traded away Teddy Bridgewater, but that's not really why I think they take this pick here. I'm just saying that if Justin Fields falls all the way to 8, I just don't see Carolina just sitting there and passing on him for somebody else. Who else would they take? They could go Micah Parsons. They could go like Waddle if they wanted to. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them to go anything but quarterback. They could definitely trade out, and a team that needs a quarterback could trade up. Like a New England could trade up to the 8th overall pick. But I think that they have 2 coaches operating that came out of college, Matt Rule and Joe Brady. I think that they got a different kind of respect for what Justin Fields did in college. Both been active during his sophomore season, but I'm not sure. And I just don't see them passing on him. I know they just traded away Teddy Bridgewater, so that kind of opens up the hole for them. And I think they might just go Justin Fields, let him and Sam Darnold kind of hash it out in training camp and go from there. Because I don't think, even with the draft picks they gave up for Sam Darnold, I think that it would be worth the insurance, I guess, for Justin Fields. Even if maybe Justin Fields doesn't win out in the offseason. And even though I highly doubt that Justin Fields wouldn't be able to beat out Sam Darnold in some kind of QB competition, they have some kind of insurance for him. At number 9, this was a pick that I honestly thought would be a quarterback. It would probably be Mac Jones, something among those lines. But that Teddy Bridgewater trade today was really weird. They come out, they trade Teddy Bridgewater away they trade for Teddy Bridgewater. They give up a 6th round pick for Teddy Bridgewater. And they lock in Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. I think that they would take Fields if he was there, but he's not. And I don't think they like Mac Jones enough to do that. Vic Fangio, he's a really defensive coach. And I think someone that really fits his scheme, Micah Parsons, Penn State linebacker, he's just a stud. And Vic Fangio is a defensive-minded coach. I think that he goes Micah Parsons, gets his favorite linebacker. And Micah Parsons probably goes top 5, top 7 in a draft where he doesn't opt out and it's not a COVID year. Then we have Jerry Jones on the clock. Dallas Cowboys, America's team. I think that this pick is pretty much in ink. If you had to put a gun to my head outside of the top 5, like what I think is the most likely that's going to happen, I would say Patrick Surtain to the Cowboys. I think that he is the number 1 corner on most people's boards. The Cowboys don't have much going on in the secondary. Like last year, what killed them when they had Dak Prescott. After Dak Prescott, everything killed them. But before Dak Prescott got hurt, every single game was a shootout where Dak Prescott just had to score 4 or 5 touchdowns and just put on insane performances. So they're going to get some help in the secondary. Patrick Surtain seems like a blue chip type corner. Then at number 11, we're going to go with the Giants. And I think here, a lot of people aren't going to be happy with this pick. I think that if you're a Giants fan out here, you want Devonta Smith, you want Jalen Waddle. And this pick's going to be Kwity Paye, however you want to say his name. I think he's going to be the number 1 edge rusher off the board, and it wouldn't shock me if he goes top 11, top 10. Edge rusher is a premium position in the NFL. I think people are forgetting about that. Edge rushers and tackles go higher than their talent actually is, and the Giants don't have anybody on the edge. They didn't have a single edge rusher ranked inside the top 50 per PFF, and they grab a premium position. It would have been wide receiver had they not gone Kenny Golladay, but I don't see why they would grab Kenny Golladay. I think that they don't mind having Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton out there with Evan Ingram. They have plenty of weapons. I think this would be offensive line if Rashawn Slater fell here, but because he didn't, I think Kwity Paye is the pick there. And after that, we're going to go with the Eagles. And the Eagles traded back, and I still think that they want to surround Jalen Hurts with talent. After last year with Carson Wentz, and that just kind of absolute shit show where Carson Wentz is out there. On one side of things, Carson Wentz is really bad, but he also was throwing to nobody. Everybody was hurt on that team at one point. His number 1 receiver at a certain point was Dallas Goedert, who's great, but he's a tight end. And Jalen Reagor didn't look great, but I think they're going to add to that wide receiver core. They go Jalen Waddle here. And Jalen Waddle is somebody that could go top 6, top 7 in the NFL draft, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did, because I think that Jalen Waddle is one of those guys where on some people's draft boards, he's going to be like a top 6, top 7 type pick. I think Jalen Waddle is going to be wide receiver 1 on some teams' draft board, so it kind of would shock me if he fell to 12, but this is just kind of how it shook out. Then at number 13, we go with the Chargers, and this is an interesting pick, but I think that they have a defensive-minded coach in Brandon Staley. Casey Hayward just left. They don't have anything really great on the outside on the perimeter in terms of cornerback, and I think J.C. Horn, I put a bet in that he's going to be the first defensive player off the board, but he's a really solid corner. I think that there's some teams out there that have him as their cornerback 1. Then at 14 for the Vikings, I think they keep it super safe here, which I think Elijah Vera Tucker is like one of the safest picks in this draft, I guess. He doesn't have like a crazy high ceiling. I don't know what his ceiling would look like because he seems like a guy that played some tackle, played some guard in college, is a little bit short. I think his wingspan sucks too. He could play tackle. He's probably a right tackle, or he could play like guard inside. He's probably going to end up as a guard. Like once he fully develops, he'll probably end up as a guard. but he's just something that can help out the offensive line for the Vikings. I think they have holes almost everywhere on the offensive line. You got a guy like Elijah Vera Tucker, who's a safe pick. Last year they got burned by Jeff Gladney. They didn't have a lot of great picks last year. I think they just get somebody safe, someone that's not going to bust, someone that can contribute on day one, because they're a team that wants to fight for playoff contention. Then at number 15, this pick I actually wanted to go Devonta Smith. I think it makes a lot of sense that they need a wide receiver, and I think that Bill Belichick would probably try and trade up to number 12 to try and get Waddle, but I think that they're going to go Mac Jones here. Mac Jones isn't somebody. And this is a crazy fall because I think that his over-under for Mac Jones is Vegas's over-under for Mac Jones is 2.5 or 3.5, something like that. And it seems like he's a lock to go third overall, but I think what people aren't understanding is that if he doesn't go third overall to the 49ers, I don't know who else is going to take him in the top 10. I think that outside of just this weird buzz that's been coming out with the 49ers, which I honestly think is like a smokescreen in a way, I don't see a scenario where he goes any sooner. And I think that the New England Patriots could even pass on Mac Jones if he's on the clock. To me, I think that the landing spots after the 49ers, I think he probably goes to the Patriots, the Bears, maybe the football team. Those are the three teams I would say after the top 10, because I don't think after the number 3 overall pick, I just don't see a team that would be that interested. Then at number 16, we have Devonta Smith, and don't be shocked if Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle are on the clock and they make it to 16, that the Cardinals go wide receiver. It doesn't really seem like they need a wide receiver. But the thing about the Cardinals is they run out of a 4 wide receiver set, the highest rate in the league, and same thing with 3 wide receiver sets, so they need depth at the wide receiver position. AJ Green's not a long-term option. Christian Kirk, he's in the last year of his deal. He's had injury problems. He hasn't been super consistent. Then Andy Isabella has been a complete bust that they grabbed in the second round a few years ago. So I think they go Devonta Smith. I think Kingsbury's going to love what Devonta Smith brings into the table. Then we have number 17, and the Raiders are always a wild card pick, but I think this is going to be Jamin Davis out of Kentucky. He's like a coverage linebacker, super fast, ran a 4.5. I think Las Vegas is going to go with a linebacker. I think it could either be Jamin Davis, Zaven Collins, or Jeremiah Owusu-Karamo. And I think that the only reason that they go Jamin Davis here is because he ran a crazy 40. He just seems like somebody that the Raiders would pick. That's really all I can say about it. John Gruden, I really can't give you a rhyme or reason for what picks John Gruden is going to make, but he just seems like a John Gruden guy, this guy Jamin Davis. Then at 18, we go Zaven Collins. He's somebody that's been mocked a lot to the Dolphins. He seems like a really good scheme fit, and I would give the Dolphins, if Devonta Smith fell there, I would give that person to the Dolphins, or that player to the Dolphins. I don't know why I said person, but there's not really much else that makes sense, especially if they go lineman, because let's say they go Jamar Chase early, then Christian Darrisaw makes sense, then Tevin Jenkins makes sense. A lot of those linemen make a lot of sense, but if they have to go Penei Sewell early, then I think that this number 18 pick becomes Zaven Collins, and if not, then I think it could be Najee Harris. Then we're going to have the Washington football team. This is an easy pick. They're going to go Christian Darrisaw here because Trent Williams, ever since he left to go to the 49ers, he's just had an absolute massive hole in the left side of the offensive line, or the Washington football team has had a huge hole. Christian Darrisaw, he didn't allow a single hit on his QB in 2020, just not even a sack. Not even a single hit was allowed on his quarterback, so that's pretty crazy to me. Then we have number 20 overall. We're going to go with the Bears, and I think this is a slot wide receiver. I think they're going to want to try and replace Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller had 417 slot snaps, something crazy like that. And it's going to be either Kadarius Toney or Elijah Moore. I think that they do definitely go with somebody that's going to come out of the slot. They want to replace that. They want to replace that hole. Why they think that they need to roll out Andy Dalton, I'm not sure. But I think it's going to be Elijah Moore or Kadarius Toney. Here we're going to go Kadarius Toney. This just seems like a Chicago pick, but Kadarius Toney is actually really interesting out of the slot. I think he can give them some juice in that offense. An offense that's going to be really flat next year. Kadarius Toney, I think he had more rushing touchdowns than receiving touchdowns in college. So I think that he offers them some electricity, some dynamism to their offense. He's an exciting player. So it's not a crazy bad pick, but it just seems like a Chicago pick. At number 21 for the Colts, we're gonna go with Jalen Phillips. He's an edge out of University of Miami. Where is he at though? Oh, I have my wide receivers locked. He seems like somebody that's going to go, he could go top 12 and it wouldn't shock me. He was the number 1 overall recruit in his class, kind of like a Jadeveon Clowney level prospect. He just had injuries at UCLA, then he transfers to Miami, and for 1 year, he kind of killed it last year. I've heard that he has tape that is top 10 type tape. He just has medical red flags. I don't see why the Colts don't take a shot on him. They don't have a roster where they should be too worried about taking a swing on somebody like that, especially when they don't have anybody roughing the passer that's worth noting besides Justin Houston. Titans, before free agency, they were pretty much a lock to go edge because They were terrible at rushing the passer last year, but now they have Bud Dupree and Harold Landry, which is a kind of like a promising duo at this point. And I think that they're going to go Greg Newsome here. Greg Newsome's a cornerback. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know a ton about Greg Newsome. Apparently, he's a fast cornerback. Had some ankle injuries. Had some health injury concerns. I was actually talking about on Twitter today because the Jets apparently are in the running for Greg Newsome, and I'm not sure if I would be happy with that pick. But it seems like Greg Newsome's a solid corner. The Titans, they cut Adoree Jackson, they cut Malcolm Butler, they let Desmond King walk. I don't see how this isn't secondary unless if there's somebody crazy on the board that they like. I think wide receiver would make sense too, but I'm going to give him Greg Newsome for now. Then we have my beloved Jets, 23rd overall. And I think Tevin Jenkins makes a lot of sense here. I think that Ojulari makes a lot of sense, and I think Elijah Moore also makes a lot of sense. But we're going to go Tevin Jenkins. They just want to get hosses in New York. I think that Joe Douglas is a big O-line guy. You guys know the Eagles' offensive line isn't what it used to be, but when Joe Douglas was there, man, and they had Brandon Brooks, and they had Kelsey at the center spot, Jason Peters, star-studded offensive line on the Eagles, I think that he's going to build onto what he built last year with Tevin Jenkins, a guy who can start at right tackle on day one. He's an older prospect, which kind of sucks, but he's a big mauler up front, a really physical guy. There's clips of him on YouTube of him just driving people into the stands. Then at number 24, I think this is going to be the farthest that Najee Harris falls. He's going to go number 24. I think the Steelers go Najee Harris, and if he's not there, they're going to go Travis Etienne. I think this is a locked-in running back at this spot. They let James Conner walk. Their running backs on the roster right now are Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, and Jalen Samuels. As a team like the Steelers that is kind of old-fashioned and wants to pound the ball, I don't see how it's not a running back at this spot. But it's a draft, so who knows. Then at the Jaguar spot, they're going to go with the guy... They're going to go with the boy, Jason Owe, out of Penn State. He's a physical freak. I want to say that he didn't record a sack in his last year. I could be wrong on that. You guys can definitely fact check me in the comments down below. But Jason Owe seems like a guy that Urban Meyer really wants. I've heard that Urban Meyer recruited him out of high school. That's kind of the buzz right now. So we're going to go Jason Owe there. And the Browns are now on the clock. And this is going to be Azeez Ojulari. So this is somebody that I think could even be maybe the first or second pass rusher off the board. I've heard that he's pro-ready or whatever. Who knows what pro-ready actually means? But he was a good pass rusher over at Georgia. And Cleveland brought in Jadeveon Clowney, but I don't think he's a long-term answer opposite Myles Garrett. So maybe they bring in this guy to develop him a little bit, and maybe they could have a really scary pairing between Ojulari and Myles Garrett for years to come. I just think that they have such a stacked roster that they have the luxury to do that kind of thing. Then we have the Ravens. They're going to go Gregory Rousseau, who's been kind of falling down draft boards. I can't even really find him. Been falling down draft boards. Yeah, so Gregory Rousseau, he's like number 53 on this list. He's been falling down draft boards. I think he's still going to get like a late first round pick to him. He's somebody that was really sick his second year at Miami, but he opted out. I think he had a bad pro day, but he's still somebody that should probably get drafted in the late first round. He's going to replace Matthew Judon on Baltimore. And it seems so Baltimore to just say fuck wide receiver, know that is the most pressing need on their team, and go edge rusher with this first pick. Then in New Orleans, they're going to go with like a luxury pick here. This is going to be Jeremiah Owusu-Karamo, who is kind of a tweener. He's like a poor man's Isaiah Simmons, where he could play corner, or he could play slot corner, which is like nickel corner. He can play inside. He can play off ball. He can play anywhere inside the box. He can maybe even play a little bit of free safety, but I would say probably not. And they could use somebody in the middle. Quan Alexander just left. Their safeties aren't anything special. They have Marcus Williams, who's really good, but Malcolm Jenkins isn't anything crazy on the other side. So they bring in this guy. It's like kind of like a luxury pick, but I think it makes sense. It makes sense. I think a wide receiver also makes sense here. Then at number 29, the Packers finally, I didn't even want to give him this pick because I don't know if the Packers will give Aaron Rodgers some help. But here they do. They go Elijah Moore. And I love this pick. If this actually happened, I would absolutely love it, because Aaron Rodgers, he had a lot of success with Randall Cobb out of the slot. And I think that Elijah Moore's game is very similar to Randall Cobb's. So you pretty much just get the new era Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson combo, where Devontae Adams is the Jordy Nelson of the offense and you have Randall Cobb on the inside. I think that's a really smooth way to run the offense with Aaron Rodgers. And Elijah Moore has been really growing on me. He's my wide receiver 4 at this point in the draft process. Then at number 30, this is kind of a weird pick, where Caleb Farley was somebody that was going top 15 early on in these drafts. But now Caleb Farley, he might not even go first round because his medical report, I heard that he deadlifted, rounded his back, and like bulged a disc out of his back and got sidelined for 2 years. Something crazy. His medicals are really bad. I could easily see him falling out of the first round, even falling out of, if he fell out of like the top 40 picks, it wouldn't shock me. But he has that kind of talent. He comes onto this team. He could be a stud cornerback, and they don't have much going on besides Tre'Davious White at corner, and they don't have much needs anywhere else. I've heard that I think that D-line is a little bit of a need for him, but with all these edge rushers that just went off the board, it makes sense that they go Caleb Farley here. They have the luxury to go with a guy that might not be able to start on day one, because after Tre'Davious White, it's literally just Josh Norman, who we both know isn't a long-term answer on that team. So they grabbed Caleb Farley, and I think that's a really cool idea long-term, because if you can have a healthy Caleb Farley who has the type of ceiling that I've heard that he has a type of ceiling of, apparently he has the ceiling of like an all-pro type of guy. If you can have him on the outside with Tre'Davious White on your defense and then have Josh Allen on the other side of the ball, that's a scary, scary look for other teams. Then at number 31, the Ravens are finally going to go with a wide receiver. And I was reluctant to make this pick because I've heard that Christian Barmore is someone that's been mocked to them very often. But we're going to go with Rashad Bateman here. Rashad Bateman can play X, Y, Z. He can play anywhere on the formation. I think that he is the perfect alpha type wide receiver for this offense. Finally, the Ravens can give Lamar Jackson a number one wide receiver going forward. I would love the idea of Rashad Bateman at X. Then you have Marquise Brown in the flanker spot, and then they run a lot of 12 personnel. So then you run Mark Andrews out of the Y spot. Perfect. That's exactly what you want to see. Give Lamar Jackson some weapons. I don't think that they're going to be a team that leads the league in rushing for much longer. They always will because of Lamar Jackson. But I think they're going to make an effort to pass more because it's a pass-first league. You're not able to win this way with Lamar Jackson where you just grind out games, because what happens is, or what's happened the last 2 years is that once they get behind, they can't come out of it. They can't. They do come out of it sometimes, but they can't do it consistently, and it's hard when you rely on running the ball because late game situations you can't. That's the problem. So when your strength is only viable when you're up a bunch, you run into some problems. At number 32, the last pick on the board, this is a really interesting pick because I think that this could be anything. I think Christian Barmore could make sense. I think an edge like Joe Tyron can make sense. But we're going to go Travis Etienne. I think that this is kind of like the pick that we had last year with Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end. The Buccaneers returned 22 of 22 starters. They really don't have a need anywhere. Besides, like, their running backs are kind of trash. Leonard Fournette, like Leo Lenny was dope, and they do like Ronald Jones, and I guess that's like a crowded backfield at this point. But I think Etienne makes sense because Tom Brady's looking for a guy in the backfield that he can trust as a pass catcher. Etienne's a great pass catcher, and if you just give another threat to a team, like they can be a Kansas City Chiefs type offense where you have those three wide receivers who are insane. You add in Gronkowski, you add in Cameron Brate, and then or OJ Howard, and you add Etienne coming out of the backfield with one of the league's best offensive lines. I think the idea of having another threat out of the backfield like that is too good for them to pass up. So that's a draft. We're going to check back in 24 hours or 48 hours, and we'll see how this all panned out. Hopefully, if this draft goes right, man, maybe we can get some likes on the Twitter. I'm probably going to post this on Twitter, just to kind of keep a receipt there in case if I do predict things right. But if I don't, I won't be held accountable for it. Of course. But as always, you can find me at @RonStewart_ on Twitter. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I mean, I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty bag, my kitty boots. I got the juice,